All right, welcome. Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for taking time at the end of their day before spring break before they get away and go on and join their families on vacation to listen to my district operations project presentation. I want to thank the Student Advisory Council for being here and those of you teachers who are very interested, obviously, in how we're going to change the handbook. I also want to thank my daughter Amanda, who is representing the Student Advisory Council and running the slide program from the computer. As you can see here, my district operations project was Parsons District Schools District Student Parent Handbook. We are currently going to take the 5 handbooks that we run now and try to pare everything down into one district-wide handbook. Okay, we basically start with the needs assessment. In August at enrollment, we had a 15-question survey on SurveyMonkey, and one of the questions that we put on there specifically pertained to the student handbooks, and it was a very simple question. It asked if the parents understood and knew where to find all of the information of school rules and procedures that pertain to the school where their child or children are enrolled. The answer was overwhelmingly over half. It says here 73% answered that they had some level of frustration with the layout and expressed difficulty in the user friendliness of the handbooks. All right, frustrations. The most expressed themes obviously were organization of topics, basic rules, and page setup. Organization of topics, no method of topic selection. What they're meaning there is we just had things spread out there. We started with tardies and we ran into riding the bikes and then we ran into lunchroom procedures, and there was no rhyme or reason for the way that we did things. And they were just randomly listed. They weren't in any specific order. Many of the parents said that if we were to alphabetize the handbook and start with A and run through, they felt it would be easier for them to find the rules and policies as they flow through in alphabetical order. And then there were a lot of different styles and kinds and rules and procedures. You know, the layout was different, that it was harder to find things. And then they also felt that, you know, every building had its own set of rules and it's hard to keep up with. The basic rules. Again, a big question. Why can't all the rules be the same? It's a good question. You know, I know at the middle school and high school we handle tardies a little bit differently than the elementary. And part of that is due to age. And the elementary kids, their parents drive them to school. And as they get older, they should be more responsible and get themselves to school. So that's kind of part of the thought process there. Handbooks are repetitive. Again, if you're talking about a tardy in elementary, you're talking about a tardy at middle school and a talk in high school, why can't we just talk about tardies one time and be done with it? And then the wording is long and full of educational jargon. We use words like ISS, OSS, HIPAA, SIPA, FERPA, you know, ESI, all those types of jargon that parents just don't understand. And so they would, you know, they want to make that easier and keep it a little bit more compact and not so spread out with words and page breaks and things of that nature. All right, the page setup, again, alphabetized, that was the most popular response. They thought it would be a lot easier to follow from A to Z. Keep page breaks split up with paragraphs to a minimum. What they're wanting there is, you know, when you go through and you got a big long policy and you want to put it all on one page, and so you page down and you leave big breaks and you're splitting the paragraphs and things like that, it makes it harder for them to follow along. So they express that desire to keep things, you know, compact and not so wordy, and keep those page breaks and all the splits to a minimum. And then one that I was that I found surprising was add page numbers so that when they're talking to another parent, the communication is easier. Meaning, you know, if you're talking about ISS, or the parent says, I want to know if this is going to be an excused absence, and you know, one's in middle school and one's in high school or one's in elementary, and instead of saying, well, where do they talk about unexcused absences, if we just have a page on there, it'd be very simple. Page 6, page 9, page 12. So we took that into consideration as well. Now I'm going to take some time. I'm going to go through all the different handbooks we had. Again, we have 5 handbooks. These are just the basic breakdowns of the simpleness of each handbook. The first handbook, the Pre-K1 handbook, was 28 pages, and it was organized by section. It had rules, policy, and then it even had a section of miscellaneous, which covered a lot of the other things that weren't in just your basic general everyday rules. The second and third grade handbook was 34 pages, poorly organized, scattered and choppy. Again, it went from riding your bike to lunchroom to recess procedures to ISS to late work to homework policy, and there was just no flow to it. It felt real choppy. The 4th and 5th grade handbook was 36 pages, and it started out real good. It was alphabetized, and then it started breaking down into topics that were labeled according to what type of situation you were dealing with. It could have been a discipline situation, it could have been an attendance situation, it could have been a lunchroom situation. And again, that's where it started to get choppy and hard to follow. The middle school handbook actually was probably the best handbook according to the parents. It was 18 pages, it was alphabetized, it was very easy to follow. They were able to just start at A and go right on through to Z, and they really liked that handbook. Then the high school, obviously a lot more rules and regulations. It was a little longer than the middle school, it's 34 pages. Not really organized, it was choppy, and I can attest to that. As we were laying that handbook out in the last few years, we tried to keep it situational. I mean, we talked about discipline first, then we talked about classroom procedure, then we talked about procedure in the hallways, and that did lead to it being broken up and choppy and very difficult to follow. So I'll take the blame for that one. All right, so we had 5 different handbooks. There were 150 pages of rules and policies and laws in our handbooks. And again, we were criticized because it was a lack of organization and it was repetitive in nature. We talked about tardies 5 different times. We talked about lunchroom procedures 5 different times. So I can see how that could lead to being frustrating for the parents. The new district-wide handbook, we did is we took all the pages together, and I sat down and started reading through the handbooks and took all the similar topics, rules, and procedures, and I listed them in the general portion of the handbook. And some of those things, again, I hear some of that jargon we were talking about. Asbestos, SIPA, discipline, drug-free schools, HIPAA, FERPA, ESI. We put the Kansas Highway Patrol hotline in there. We also listed non-discrimination, the rules and procedures and laws for OSS and expulsion. Weapons, section 504s. We also added our wellness policy, which we just put in the last couple years. Then we combined all the elementary centers into one section. Then the middle school had their own school section, and then the high school had a section in there as well. The finished product, now what you have in front of you is a very rough draft of the finished product, but it was 66 pages. It is alphabetized. I think we took that and thought that that would be the easiest way to go about it. Parents could start at A and flip through and find what they're looking for very easily. The overall total pages of handbooks decreased by 84 pages. And you know, when you're talking about budgets and time when we're talking about money, you take that as 86 pages, front and back, would be to add the 2 pages. You're looking at 103,200 copied pages that were, saved, which can save us hundreds of dollars. You're going to put a front and a back. We're going to do them back to back. So that's a big difference when you're talking about money and cost and things of that nature. What we're spending just to make copies. Our key stakeholders again are the site council. We got influential parent groups we're going to talk to. We're going to let the students critique it. We're going to get this out in front of the student advisory council. They're going to look at it next week when we get back from spring break. They're going to start looking at it and seeing what makes sense and what doesn't, because while we always think it makes great sense to us as educators, the ones that this is for really are the parents and the students. And it's to look up information, and it should be quick. They shouldn't have to thumb through a bunch of pages and find where the breaks are. They should be able to find what they're looking for quickly and be able to read it and get moving on down the road. So where do we go from here? Great question. We're going to continue to pare down the rules and procedures. Like we said, and the parents said, do we really need 3 different ways to interpret a rule or a policy? This is going to require some give and take on us as administrators. We're going to have to sit down and say, my way here at the high school might not definitely be the only way to do things. And we're going to have to get our heads together and figure out if we can come up with simple solutions to problems that are addressed in these handbooks, different rules, different procedures. And again, as we go through this, the more that we can pare down and the better that we can get at having these very simple rules that we can follow from K through 12. I think that's going to benefit us, it's going to benefit the parents and our students, and it's going to make things a lot easier for communication to the home and back to the school, from the parent to the student, from the student to the administrator and teachers and so on. So this is the timeline that we've used for this project here. In August, we had our needs assessment survey and enrollment. Shortly after that, in November, where the administrators met, and we took each other's handbooks and we started looking and cross-examining them, and then they gave them to me. And I went through them in February and started to list all the common rules, all the common laws, all the common practices that everybody's doing the same, and we placed them in the general information portion of the student handbook itself. Then in March, which just finished the rough draft of the completed handbook, that's what you see in front of you there. It is 66 pages, but it's a lot less than 150 pages, so we're getting there where we need to go. In April, we're going to share the draft with the site councils, and the district administration is going to take it back to their schools. They're going to start talking to their teachers. They're going to start talking to their different student groups, their site councils as well, trying to get more sets of eyes to look through the things and see what's going on and see if we're headed in the right direction or if we got some more work to do. And then obviously in May, right there towards the end of the school year, we'd like to try to have a final draft and get this thing ready for board approval so that we can get it printed and handed out at enrollment in August and get everything ready to go. It's not a finished product yet, but I think we're very, very well on our way to getting this thing tied up to where we can start, again, going through it one more time to pare it down and keep working and keep helping our parents and our students understand that, you know, we can do them the same way from K through 12 and not have a whole bunch of different interpretations of rules. So, does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it will be difficult to pare down the rules between the schools?
Difficult, yes, in some aspects. I think, you know, as school administrators, we always like to think that we are God and we're the rulers of everything and we know all the rules. But, you know, we're going to have to sit down together and come to some common ground for the common good of everybody involved so that we're not stringing people along. And, you know, it's okay to act this way in one building, but if you do it in this building, you're going to have a different set of consequences and there are different sets of rules to follow. So it could be difficult. We're ready for the challenge, so to speak. And, you know, I, for one, look forward to, you know, cutting this thing down even more. It's going to be a long process, but at least we've started and we've got on the way for that. Any other questions, concerns? No? Great, well thank you. You guys need to go ahead and get out on your spring break. And again, I do appreciate you guys spending the time here with me so I can go over my project. Thanks a lot.